Do you need all this stuff to dehydrate? You don't. And let me tell you what my favorite tools and my least favorite tools that I have in my dehydrating kitchen and what I'm getting rid of. Hi folks, it's Darcy from the purposefulpantry.com, and I'm letting you in on one of my dirty little secrets. I have accumulated so much stuff over the years when I'm teaching dehydrating on the blog, here on YouTube, things I want to try for me, things I always thought maybe I'll use that one day. It can become a lot of stuff. Most of it is not even necessary for dehydrating at all. So I want to show you my absolute favorite tools, walk through here as we declutter and get rid of some things, and talk about what's really necessary to dehydrate. And you'll be surprised at how little you actually need. Not only do I have all of these tools, I also have multiple dehydrators that are in places stored in my house that I can't keep them any longer. So what I'm doing is I contacted a group of women who are interested in learning how to dehydrate, and I'm going to donate some of these dehydrators to them, plus some of the tools that I don't use because maybe they'll find them useful. I just don't think they're necessary. And so we're going to go through my favorites right here. Okay. Label maker. This is not necessary, but I use this a lot across my home, and so I do use it with my dry foods as well. I label the jars that I know are going to stay the same all the time. If they're going to be the jars that come and go, I will just use a Sharpie marker on the lid. I can use some painter's tape on the outside. Masking tape works well. You don't need some kind of fancy labeling system, okay? I just happen to have this and I use it a lot, but it's not necessary. Just use something to mark your jars with. My next thing, favorites, mandolin glove. Okay, this is a meat slicing glove that is like a chainmail material. It's not really chainmail, but it's kind of built that way, and it is so protecting. If you use a mandolin, do not do it without using this glove as well. It protects your hand as you're slicing through that food across that blade. I can't tell you how many stories that I've seen of people saying, oh, I didn't use it. I used the guard, my hand slipped off the guard, or I didn't think I needed it and I used it and now I don't have the tip of my pinky. The mandolin is a great tool. It's one that I find necessary in my kitchen to prepare foods, but you must protect your hand. And this is, I find, necessary along with it. So the next thing I have here is an accumulation of storage bags. Mylar bags, vacuum seal bags, and things like that. I don't use any of these for storage of my dry goods. These are perfect for doing long-term storage, hiking, camping kind of storage for meals. They're perfect for that. But my organization doesn't work with this at all. This would go into a box. It would just stack on top of other things. I don't go through them. I need things out in front where I can see them. So these don't really work well for me for storage, but they may work for you. Yeah, hear that. Okay, so another tool that I bought is this little wavy chopper. Now, it makes really pretty carrots and pickles and zucchini chips, but it's so not necessary. It's going. Another tool that I bought is this is a cherry pitter. Okay, it has 6 places where you can put cherries in. You do this, they come out the bottom, the pits do, and then you pull your cherries off to put them on your dehydrator. I use this once a year, but I will never get rid of it because it makes the job so much easier. Okay, so the next thing I have is my assortment of vacuum sealing tools. Are they necessary? No. Are they useful? Yes. Vacuum sealing helps protect your food against oxygen and moisture in your jar. It can pull that out and you can store it long term. But if you dry properly, if you condition and you store properly, you're not going to have that issue anyway. So you don't need it, but it can be helpful. But for something that's not necessary and I don't use all that often anymore, I have a lot of them. So I need to pare this down to what I'm actually going to use. So what I have a handheld food saver. I have a brake bleeder. I have the original handheld food saver. I have my large vacuum sealer, which I don't have out here handy, and I have this vacuum sealer. If I'm going to use one, I'm going now to the least stressful for me to use, okay? So the brake bleeder is something that was made for autos that they did for brake work. You put this on your jar, you pump it out, so you're pumping out the air out of your jar. The problem is that if you have a grip problem, this can be very hard to do, especially the more you get into it. It's not easy to store. I don't find it useful. It's a little iffy when you're putting this into the jar attachment, and I don't find it helpful. So I'm not going to keep this. With my short-term things, this will be one I keep because it is non-electric. So it's part of my non-electric kitchen stash. It's going to go there. What I also have are these 2 handheld vacuum sealers. They work the same way. You use your vacuum sealer jar attachment, you put it over your lid, over your jar, you put this on top and you run it, and it will take out the air from your jar. The problem is that these lids are designed poorly for a regular mouth jar, and I don't use a lot of them, so that's okay, but people have so much trouble getting this to work on this. It works fine for the wide mouth, but on the regular mouth, which a lot of people have, they are problematic. So having these is no longer necessary for me, so I'm going to give them away with some tips to those girls about how to do them. One of the tips to do this is always to use 2 lids, one regular, flip them over, put them on there, run your machine, make sure the seal is broken here before you take off the lid, and usually that will work. Okay, that's one of the biggest tips. Because it's something I don't use all the time, I don't need to keep all of these pieces, and so they're going to get donated that way. So keep all that and this. What I chose to keep out of all of the tools that I have is this battery operated vacuum sealer. It shows you the percentage of what the charge is. It gives you a countdown here so that you can see how long that you've been running it. It has both sizes, regular mouth, come on, and wide mouth in one piece so that they just store just like this. You still put this over your jar, just like that. You run it, and you go for 30 seconds. That's what they suggest is the minimum that you do. But as it runs, you can hear the pitch of this thing start to go from the low end, and it starts to increase. When it's increased and you get this really high pitch and it doesn't change anymore, that's when you're vacuum sealed. But you also have the timer here that you can see how long it's been running to let you know, and you don't have to watch it or listen for it. You just kind of let it run and keep an eye on the time. We have hit that pitch where it stays. We are now at 30 seconds, so I know it's good. I'm going to turn it off. Take my jar. Well, that shouldn't have come off, but I didn't have them attached well. And what you have is a perfectly sealed jar with no issue. I have yet to have an issue with this popping off easily. I've never had an issue of the jar not working like it does with the Food Saver. So this is the one that I have chosen to pare everything down to. Now, does this mean that you need to go dump your Food Saver stuff for this? No, you don't. And yes, I'll have all the links to all these things down below that I think are important. Now, the other thing that I think is really important are lids, and I keep all of my lids when I reuse them for dry storage all the time. There's no sense in buying new ones every time that you put a new lid on a jar. Now, if you're canning, yes. Dehydrating, no. So I have this little box of lids that I use on my dry storage. The other thing that I keep in handy here are brushes. When I'm making powders, which I use right here, tools that I use for that is a coffee grinder and then my Nutri Ninja. Those are the things that I use most often, and I think they're necessary in my kitchen for that. I will clean them out with this because you don't want to waste the powder. So things can stick down under the blades, they can stick to the top of your lid, and this just helps me get in there and clean it out, keep it, and not waste anything. So these are necessary tools for me. So the next thing I have that I bought that I was going to use to see what I thought about it are these shaker lids that fit right on top of your canning jars. They have this silicone seal right here. That doesn't do you any good when this part is not airtight. But you would put it on your jar for like vegetable powder or green powder or any kind of powders that you use, and you can shake it as you want it. It is not airtight. So over time, I did find that things degraded because of this. I have old assortments of old jar lids and things here that nobody needs to see. And then I do keep a small collection of these kind of silicone lids for some of my clamp jars that need this on there. I have some of them that are extras so that if I need them, I can put them in. Okay, that's one box down. Awesome. Oh, forgot these. Tools. Okay, another tool I have is my mushroom cutter. This is a metal slicer for eggs, for strawberries, for mushrooms. It doesn't have those cheap wires in here that when you try to cut something then they break. This is what I use all the time to cut mushrooms, strawberries, eggs, and whatever other small things that you want to make slices out of. This is a handy thing. Really handy. Necessary? No, none of this stuff is necessary. Well, not all of it. Okay, what I have here is a vegetable chopper. This is like a little mini non-electric food processor. So you open it up and you put one of, you can see those here. They are little blades that you set here. You put your vegetables on top of it, you chop it, and it dices in several different sizes that I use a lot. Okay, so I use this more than a food processor because it's easier to clean. Yeah, it's a little manual, but you know, I can use the work. That way I don't have to get the big food processor out and then clean the big food processor and then do all that kind of stuff. So I find this pretty necessary in my dehydrating kitchen. Can you use a knife? Yes. Do you have a food processor that you can use instead? Yes. Okay, but it's still one of my very favorite tools. Okay, something else that I have, and why is this canning thing here? That's where I couldn't find it. Okay, yeah, that's how my kitchen works. What I have here is a I pulled this out because it was quick and easy to pull it out. These are capsules that I put green powder in that my husband likes to take to help supplement his diet. Doesn't mean that it's replacing anything. It's just a supplement that he likes to do. You can do this with vegetable powders. You can do this with fruit powders. You can do this with green powder. You can do this with mushroom powders. You can do it with liver powder. Anything that you want to do, and you can make these. This is the machine that I use for it. And then these are the capsules, the size capsules that we like to use. Necessary, not in a heart, not at all. But it's something that I keep in my kitchen because we use it and it's handy. It makes doing those pill things a lot easier. So that is one box that just stays just like it is. All right, so then the last box we have here. Ugh, this is the one that drives me nuts the most. So again, we talked about my OXO mandolin, which is this one right here. What I really wish mandolin companies would do is create a cover for these so that you didn't even have to worry about accidentally running your hand across this, just in case, because that's what I'm going to do. This is a pop-up mandolin. Trying to do this off screen. You don't need to, but it just pops up. You run your food across it. It cuts it in slices or however big you want, julienne, whatever you set the blade to. And then this is the thing that you run across it to help guard. This just doesn't hold on to food very well, which is why I use this. Is this necessary? No. Is it helpful and useful? So much. So I will never get rid of this thing. This is my favorite, and this is the one that I use the most often if I'm going to pull something out quickly because I know this one well, and so I use it a lot. Okay. So this is the dash mandolin, which is a safe mandolin. You don't ever actually have to touch the blades, but you still get near them when you're trying to clean it. So I still want you to be very, very careful. I did nick my finger once trying to clean this thing. So what happens is you put something in the chute here and you press on this, and you can see back here, it just slices right, you can see where the blade is right there. And it just slices right down inside that chute and then puts it out the bottom into a collection box. This means that for the most part, your fingers never come near the blade, okay? So it's handy that way. This is the most safe of all mandolins. The problem is it only fits what will fit into this chute. So if you're trying to do big apples, they're not gonna fit here. If you're trying to do big potatoes, they're not gonna fit here. You have to cut them down, or you use things that are small enough to fit in this. So if you're wanting big, broad apple slices, this is not the tool for you. But it's safer. It's so much safer than any other mandolin pretty much on the market. So I would recommend it if you really want one and you're not so concerned about the large slices. And I have a couple of others. I bought this this one. This is the upper OXO. I don't like it as much. I've tried to use it a lot and I want to love it and I don't. It's a struggle for me and I don't know why, but it is. So it's gonna go. And then I have this burr liner, which is a handheld. You hold it as you run things across the blade. It is not on a stand, which I need to have more stability to make sure I'm safe. It's a wonderful mandolin though. So if you're sure of yourself and you can hold it up and you can do well with it, use this. It's the best one that I own. It's just not safe for me. Okay. All right. So I'm keeping the dash and I'm keeping my OXO. All right. And the last thing I want to talk about are all of the liners and things that you need for your machine. Every machine, whether it's a plastic model that has the plastic grates or if you bought a stainless steel that have the stainless steel trays in them, you want to use some kind of liner on them. It keeps your trays cleaner, so they're a little easier. You don't have that much to clean up. It keeps things from sticking and it makes things easier to transfer on and off those trays and then like put it into a jar or put it wherever you need to put it in. A liner is necessary. My favorites are as follows. This fruit leather sheet I use a lot. It is a Teflon coated sheet that can be cut down to fit any size machine that you have. It comes in a big 14 by 14 sheet, so it can be cut down to any smaller machine, and you don't have to worry about it. The Teflon coating is the safer Teflon that's out nowadays compared to what was out starting in the 80s, and your machine doesn't get hot enough to cause a problem anyway, so I use these. One of the other things I use is an off-brand mesh sheet like this. I use this 99.9% of the time. It makes things going onto your sheet, your trays easier. You can collect it easier. You can tip it. It can be tossed in the washing machine if you want to wash it that way. I don't do that. I just wash it in the sink. But these are really easy to use and they can be cut down to any size machine that you need. Okay. Your machine, most of the time, except Excalibur, does give you a mesh for every tray because their trays aren't, you have to have it. But for the rest of the machines, what often happens is they give you one mesh liner and that's it, but you might have 6 to 8 trays. So you have to buy more. Don't buy the ones that come with the machine. Buy the off-brand like that I showed you, One of the off brands like this, it costs so much less, they work just as well, and they're handy. So don't spend that extra money for these. But I do like them. They're rigid, they move easily. I can still funnel them into things. I don't dislike these. I just don't think they're worth the money that they charge for this when it should come with the machine in the first place. Okay, another thing that gets used a lot are silicone sheets like this. They have a lip on the edge that makes people more comfortable doing fruit leather, so they don't have to worry about it falling off. But I'm telling you, doing your fruit leather right, you don't have to worry about that anyway. But you can also do liquids in these, so it helps do that kind of thing as well. So these are not my favorites. I struggle with these because they're useful, but I find that they stick a lot. I'm just not fond of them. They don't clean well for our area water, so they always look dirty when it's just the hard water stains. But these are a big tool. Now, again, are they necessary? Liners are the one thing I would tell you are really necessary. They will make your life so much easier. Things won't stick. They make it easier to flip things. They are just necessary to the way a machine works, but you don't have to spend the big money. You can also use parchment paper. You can use like some people use fabric sheets, 100% cotton, linen, because linen won't shed as much. They won't have as much lint, but they will just use a cotton sheet that they'll put across the trays. I don't like that for me because I don't like them going into my wash, because then that goes into my food, and I've seen the lint that comes out of my dryer. I just choose not to do that, but that's just me. So let me show you what it looks like now. So here is how it turned out. This is my everyday use box, which are lids, rings, my labeler, my vacuum sealer, my slicer for the smaller things, and then my brushes. I'm keeping the Mylar bags here because it's the best place that I have right now to keep them. These are my slicers, my safe mandolin, the dash, and then my OXO plus my cutting glove, and then this is the best place for me to keep the cherry pitter. And then here is my vegetable chopper and the pill machine. So this is all I kept. There used to be 5 boxes of this stuff, plus all of my tray liners, which are going to go in my storage unit. I'll show you how to do that in a second. This is the box of all the things that I'm donating that isn't getting tossed. So what I have here, that's where all of the boxes, the bins are going to go that aren't used. And I have this little shelf thing that I keep here to slide all of my extra liners here that I don't use. So what tools do I have that you don't have, that you think are not necessary? Or what tools do you think are really necessary that I don't have here? I'd love to hear about that down in the comments below. And if you want the basics on how to dehydrate because you're new to this, watch this playlist right here and I'll walk you through all of the ways to get started. And until I see you again next time, happy dehydrating.